Welcome to the Ambitious Coach Lab, powered by 90. I'm your host, Dr. Cam Lawson. Each week, we explore the real tactics, tough conversations, and breakthrough moments that drive coaching success. Let's jump into today's episode. Awesome. Well, we have Jim Haviland today, partner with Impact Architects. I personally am very excited about this interview. Jim worked with 90. He was one of the
Oh,
first people that came in and trained me. And I feel like we were just nerding out in the sessions where we went through and kind of dove
totally.
into operating systems, which was so much fun. But really, I'm really excited to talk through your journey as a
Mm,
coach and how you've been very intentional about how you've grown your practice. So we're going to dive into how you've set your vision, how you've kind of
mm.
built your offering. But one of the things that I'm really intrigued about is your journey and your entrepreneur journey. So can you share just a little bit about how you got to where you're at to today?
Sure, sure. Uh, well, so I'm a sixth generation entrepreneur. I was gonna rebel against all that, went to engineering school. Uh, sure enough,
Gotcha.
sophomore year, I was a little short on money. My friend and I started a software company. I was already doing other work. I a million jobs to pay for school, but
Yep.
we started a software company, and for me, I just realized that it's a natural part of how you solve problems. Like, oh,
Mhm.
we gotta create something here. So since then, gosh, I think it's 17 businesses where I've either been the founder or on the founding leadership team. All the great stories in there, man. Uh, some great successes, some things that kind of fell short. All the transaction types. Multiple rounds of VC, some PE, some buyouts, some. But there's really great stories in there, like including one where actually Chris Snyder and I took 3 PowerPoint slides and turned it into 1,500 people globally doing logistics and customer support as part of a joint venture, global joint venture, which is really super fun. And somehow we didn't make any money on that. That's the so the lesson there. Choose your partners carefully.
There you
Um,
go.
uh, but for me, the thing that I saw from early on is that entrepreneurship really gave people agency, gave them a chance to really reach um, their peak of who they are, the top of the triangle of hierarchy of needs, right? So, getting all the way to self actualization, and so and there's for people and also for communities, like you bring a bunch of people along with you. It creates options. It creates a much more rich life when that's was the default when we were, a couple generations ago was to start a business, and you might start, take on the business that your parents had or whatever. But, and it just it fed better into life. So but what I wanted to do is I found that with myself, people around me were doing a very unhealthy approach to, uh, entrepreneurship. Like willing to sacrifice everything. I mean, it's very kind of macho approach to it. And that can't be it. That can't be the
Mhm.
only way. There has to be a healthy, repeatable way of doing this. And so, really early on, even long before I was coaching, I was reading Peter Drucker and Jim Collins, and all of the great thinkers of this. And I started working with other entrepreneurs on their journey. And either as a fractional member of the team or as a consultant. I didn't come on coaching until. Uh, Chris Snyder and I we were both running this company called Box Mobile. 3 rounds of venture funding that had the global joint venture. Really, it was super fun, and we made a lot of mistakes. But we wanted to do some M&A work after that, and so we said, how do we make this work? And we talked to some friends in P and VC, and they said, you know what, this thing. Business operating system. It's like in the EOS, particularly, it's very effective. You should really look at it. You can't do it exactly the way they teach it. You got to modify it a bit, but it's really the core of it's really good. So we read traction. We went to become implementers. We kind of fell in love with the community, and then and that's it. But then we found 90 and as part of that journey. We had to find software for what we were doing. We're tech guys, and we found 90. We met Mark Abbott. We looked at the other options that were available. We didn't like any of their. Really, it was their vision for that didn't appeal to us. And Mark said, hey, I want to make uh, small medium businesses and their employees extraordinarily productive, humane, and resilient. We said, that's us, man. that's
Yeah.
that's what I want to do every day. um, So we invested in and then participated in at 90. Chris is still there doing stuff, doing great stuff. But for me, I just um, I heard the words "stay in your lane, Jim." As we got big, we got it's a big company now. You got almost 200 people, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so that's too big for Jim Haviland. He's a I mean, I'm a coach. It's really
Yeah.
what I've always loved. It's what I've always wanted to study. It's what I do naturally. So if I really lean into what I love to do and what I'm great at, coaching is it. So,
Mm.
um, that's my journey. So I'm still acting as a fractional a couple places. I still got have my irons and a number of fires, but mostly what I'm doing is coaching now.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you sharing some of those. I didn't even know. So, um, you don't really shy away from calling yourself a business operating system expert. You've mentioned that a
Right,
couple
right.
times.
Sure.
Can you just explain a little bit of what that means to you? Because that really isn't, I would argue, isn't necessarily commonplace in the
It's
business
not.
acumen and language, if you will.
That's correct. I actually had this conversation yesterday with someone, one of my clients is a, uh, venture capital group, and they introduced me to one of the new portfolio companies, and the guy said, "Yeah, I've been around for a while. I never heard business operating systems before." And I said, "Well, it's a relatively new term, but it describes this. It describes this way of taking all of the best practices, all the tools, all the concepts, and all the disciplines that we baked into what it is to run a great company. When we look at all those big companies, when Jim Collins does his research, all that stuff describes the kinds of things you have to have in place if you're going to be a big, successful company, enduring great company. And if you take it all and you make it into a system where all the parts connect to each other, and where uh, mastery in one brings, kind of raises, it's like a string. If I get better at one, raises the other ones as well. That is an operating system. And the notion that we should, I mean, for me, as part of my mission, is I have to let the world know that there's a better way of doing this. That you should adopt a business operating system. That you have one already, but it's probably an accidental one, and you should have an intentional one. And
Mm,
some really smart people, well intentioned, doing great work, have created a framework that you can just use to go make a lot of the decisions you otherwise would screw up.
mm,
And it takes so much focus and concentration to build a great company, um, focusing on product and customer. Don't go figure out how to do this yourself, right? That's what I say. Like, listen, man, you got better things to do than figure out how to run a meeting. You just
yeah.
do. Yet you got a better way to, better things to do than figure out how to give great feedback,
Mm,
how to build culture, and
yeah.
but you need to do these things. You won't get to being at the top of the pyramid until you got these things figured out. So just start with something that works, and then learn the rules well to break them well. And and for me, that's what I've done with operating systems.
Mm,
I dug into what was going on with EOS and scaling up, and Pinnacle, and all the Jim Collins tools, like all those tools. Like, what are the core things there?
mm,
And I think, actually working with Mark when we started, outlining what 90OS was going to be, like this notion of having these concepts as tools and disciplines and breaking those things apart. So, breaking the whole thing down into component pieces so we can have more flexibility for how we think about teaching it,
mm,
um, and how and what it takes to get to expertise, or sufficient expertise people have to use it, where the different tools apply at different stages of growth, right? For me, that's a playground. That's what I love to do. And I think I've expert is a somewhat overused term, but I think I'm probably one of the few people that really dug into this as in the level of depth that I have, and I feel very confident that when faced with a challenge, like how do I apply it to this thing, I've got the tools I need to go figure it out. So
yeah. Well, I think, by the books behind you, you've definitely done your homework and diving in. I think
it's a natural for you see I'm also an 8443 and a 15, right? So this is like a natural part of
yes.
who I am, right? Yeah, 8443, high fact finder. Um 15, I think there's a right best way to do things, and
Mm.
I like to be knowledgeable about the things I do. So this is my natural compunction to go make these things happen this way. So
Yes. No, I love that. And that I think does qualify you as an expert. I mean, you've dove in because I love the concept of the accidental business operating system. Like
yeah.
everybody has one, whether you know it or not. There are systems in the way that you operate your business, whether that's intentional or not. And so then you have these other frameworks that come in, and you just by nature of probably curiosity have dove into all of them. So then you can kind of understand where people are at, whether they have
Right.
experience in one. So I think that really
Right.
does make you, and I think it seems to me that there's a lot of intentionality behind that. And one of the core competencies that we believe here at 90 is that vision is such a critical part of developing a coaching practice and building
Yeah.
one, knowing who you are, why you do what you do. So can you share a little bit about how business operating systems have shaped how you've built your coaching practice?
Yeah. I mean, so for me, there are two things that I that are really mission for me. I believe no great idea should die for the wrong reasons.
Oh, I love that.
And and thanks. Yeah, I mean, and it gives a lot of clarity,
Yeah.
and that entrepreneurship is the best path for self-actualization of people and communities. If I take those 2 things, on, and I just found that both those things excite me and direct me every day, that I knew what I had to be able to do is I had to meet my clients where they're at. I wanted to be able to go deeper and deeper. We did some research when I was at 90, and the research continues is trying to figure out, hey, what's the real impact of having an operating system? What's the real, how can we measure it in a way that people can is reliable? And this is what we found, right? Four x, guys, your growth rate, your average growth rate compared to your peers in your niche, right? That's a lot, man. That's pretty great. I mean, even if you're on the bottom part of that bell curve, man, you're gonna do pretty
Yeah.
well. But here's the most important one. And it's hard to validate these things in all the ways we'd like to, but 1/10,000th, 1/10,000th, 0.0001% is likely to go out of business. Wow. Because the operating system removes all of the unforced errors. That's
Yeah.
what I attribute it to. So, also, people we're looking at people, that go to 90, so that they're already said, "I want to be good at this. I wanna adopt a tool that helps me work on the business, in the business," right? So, they're self-selecting to some extent, and I think that's when we talk about who's most likely to be successful, who's gonna grow faster in the market, these people that take seriously the idea of running the business and just doing the business, those are the ones that are gonna be more successful.
Hmm.
And so for me, I know, you know, when we think about, all businesses, I can't help all businesses, but I can help anybody that thinks that believes they want to run a great business.
Hmm.
And so with my practice, I wanted to go deep into that and say, listen, if you want to run a great business and you're willing to do something about it now, what are the range of options you have available to you? I mean, we did this and we saw there's a big drop off between people that want to do something and people that actually hire a coach, which is been shown to be the fastest way to adopt the tools. And if you want to go further, faster, you find yourself a coach. You want to be a great runner. You can read some books, you can watch some videos, but holy cannoli, eventually you're going to have to get a coach if you really want to be a great runner.
Yeah.
Um, but not everyone's in a place where they believe that a coach can help, that they know the coach can help, that they understand what coaching is, or they know where to find one, or how to develop enough trust to let me in the door.
Hmm.
So, what I've been doing with my practice is find more and more ways to help people early on to get a taste of it, to get started.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one of the things I liked about 90 from the get-go in our practice, even before I was involved with 90, was that I could see, hey, listen, if I'm going to give you a book, I'm going to get you on the software. Go as far as you possibly can. Call me if you need help. Eventually, if you still want to run a great business, you're going to see that I can help you, and we'll
Yeah.
have a relationship. But I don't mind going first. I don't mind,
Hmm.
you know. All the things I loved about the EOS community is the notion of help first. I think that is brilliant. That is the right way to do it. So I'm going to put myself out there all the time. If you ask for help, I'm going to help you.
Hmm.
Um, and for me to make that a workable business, a viable business, I had to come up with more and more ways to kind of like, hey, with where you're at, this is where I'm going to put you, right? So
Yeah.
so I got the free stuff that I offer. I've got a set of things that are low cost. I got a whole website that's coming out this next year called firstos.com, one STOS.com, that is really aimed at my, because I've gotten myself involved in a lot of these, venture firms and incubators and that kind of stuff, and they need, you know, small bites of this stuff that they can give to their portfolio companies so they don't screw up. And so breaking it down to things that, so it's really solving the problem they have in front of them. Like there's one class called Get Your Numbers Right. There's one like No More Bad Meetings. So it's like, there's like really making it so you can start eating this stuff, but then
Yeah.
with a natural stepping towards I've got clients that are doing, plenty of clients are doing the full regular boat stuff,
Yeah.
4 times a year, one of them's an
Mhm.
annual. With a lot of them, I do additional work, helping them roll it out, or, I'll coach a new leadership team member, for a period of time, to get them up to speed. And just as I come upon the needs within my client base, uh, just as mission, I have to find a way to make it happen. So I'm
Mm.
constantly looking for partners to help. I was just interviewing this last 2 weeks, additional coaches, that I think are, personal coaches, executive coaches. Like, hey, I'm not really wired for it.
Yeah.
I've done it. I know it's reasonably good, but can I find more people that are going to
Mhm.
fit more and more circumstances at the different price points and to get it work for people? Because all that matters. All that
Yeah.
matters.
Talk a little bit about, my brain grabbed onto something, and I wanna make sure I ask this because you talked a little bit about it, of kind of the journey where obviously the help first mindset where you're
Yeah.
going in and providing that, but can you talk a little bit about the qualifying process where you're getting people to the point where they're serious about, take the
Yeah.
running example, like, "I need to start running, I'm gonna read a book on it." Okay, great.
Right. Yeah.
That's not really working for me. I'm in an emotional spot where I have gotten to this journey where I'm ready to pull the trigger and hire somebody to teach me how to run and really hold
Yeah.
me accountable. Can you talk through how you qualify that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It just when I as an EOS implementer, there's just certain things they say about the business development process there. And just because I'm Jim Haviland, I ran a study on it. I called all the implementers I could possibly could and asked them questions about their biz dev process
Mm.
and and trying to get data out of it. Like
Yeah,
they send out copies of Traction. You'll see, behind me. I've got still have I think it's a great book for helping people get started.
yeah,
Um, and so if that's all you want to do, I don't mind giving you a book. We've got at my office, we've got, I don't know, 150 books that we'll give out
yeah,
on a regular basis. Like I gave out 3 this week, like people just coming by. Oh, I should give you this book. Let me know if you want to talk about it. Um, and I think that's the qualifying. We came up with a model for this. The 80, 40, 20, 421. 421 is part of the EOS model for uh, people that are willing to talk to you about it. Those are warm leads.
mm,
2 will let you talk to their leadership team, and one will become a client.
mm,
But it was always like for me, I used to be a CMO, so what happens before that?
yeah,
Um, and and roughly what we found was, and we just the math isn't perfect, but 80 target market companies, only about half of them care about becoming a great company someday. And that's all I really care about. I say it all the time. Like I have videos, introduce myself to people. I said, listen, if you want to run a truly great company, or if you want to build a truly great company, because those are the ones I really care about. If you just want to make a couple extra bucks, you're probably not going to pay me to help you do the things I do.
mm,
Right. Or if you just want the pain to go away, I could probably help you with that, but it's not really, you're not going to fall in love with me as your
yeah,
coach, because I'm really more interested in, I want to do something amazing and what that amazing looks like for you. It doesn't have to be about growth. It can be about, I've got one client that they just want to be the very best place for a certain kind of worker to come work, and they want to create that environment, and they want to be like the magnet for that kind of stuff, and like very manageable growth.
yeah,
And like that's really interesting to me.
mm,
Like it's not about making money; it's about becoming the kind of company that people just want to work at. And I think that's valid. So
yeah,
anyway, 80, 40 want to build a truly great company. Only 20 are going to be willing to do something about it right now. Put some time and energy into it, and maybe it's just a book. And what we've talked about quite a bit is maybe it's a book and some software. That's why I love that combination. So, hey, I'm going to give you the book. I'm going to create an instance for you in 90 so you can apply these things as you're going through. You start putting that stuff in. I love that. And then I also offer a free half day to people. Like, hey, if this seems interesting, I'll help you set it up. I'll give you a free half day, walk you through the stuff, and get you started. And I got to tell you, almost everyone that's done that with me has eventually become a paying client in some way.
wow,
But not not like, a big client
Sure,
necessarily, but
sure.
but they're like, "Okay, this is great. Thank you so much for this. I feel like I should pay you." He said,
The
"No."
reciprocation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, nope. I mean, if when you're ready to do some more, I'm here for you. You can pay me then. And then, sure enough, either then or a quarter later or a year later, they call me up and said, "Okay, I think we need you to run my annual or something," right?
mm,
Because I think it's, they get to the idea that there is something more, that there is more than that what they can come up with off the top of their head, and that's part of that journey. So 80-40-20. I want to do something right now. 20 down to 4, that's hard. The reason it's 20 down to 4 is because it's so hard, because you have to buy off on that, yes, coaching is a thing, that it matters, that I'm gonna pay how much money, right? It's like, it one of the one of the other coaches I used to, I don't know, I don't have his permission to use his story, but I'll sorry, I won't put his name out there, but
fair enough.
he he used to say all the time, my "Hey, how much does it cost to hire you?" He said, "I'm free." "Really, you're free?" "Yep, absolutely free." Tell me about that. How can you just do this for free? He said, "Listen, you don't owe me anything until I've created some value for you. First of all, that's my guarantee. End of the first day, that's when you can pay me some money. But if you don't feel like paying me is the best investment you've ever made, then we're not going to work well together. So you'll get to the end of the day, you'll have learned some stuff. It'll be free, no problem. You know, the value I create for my clients, the upside revenue that I opportunity I create for them is it's so easy for them to keep paying me. It's so easy, but people can't necessarily see that. Like all the things I'm going to help them do. I'm going to take away the drama. I'm going to reduce the stress. I'm going to keep everyone focused, get everyone rowing the same direction, teach everyone the same language, rituals, artifacts, and language, create a culture of high accountability. You just can't do that organically.
Yeah,
It
just
doesn't,
have
it
it.
almost never happens organically.
Right.
So knowing that you got to put some structures in place, and actually having the coach be able to come in and take some of the spears and arrows
Mm,
of, from people like, "I'm asking you to change," and, like, "Oh, why are we changing?" It says, "Here's the data, here's the research," and, "You don't have to do it. I'll make suggestions, you make decisions, but if you don't do it, here's what's gonna happen."
mm,
And so, "All right, we'll try it." And but kind of I don't have to be there the next day. I I don't you don't have to be we're trying to build a high trust relationship, but more so, I'm not making anyone inside your organization ask you to do these things. I'm willing to go in to ask. I'm willing to call you out on stuff, and it's got a lot of value to it.
yeah, no, that's great. I mean, on that note, I mean, it sounds like there are, call it multiple offerings, if you will, or
Yep.
solutions that you can, how do you determine if a client goes down this path or this path? Like, how does that process look to where when you get them boiled down to the 4-2-1, where you're okay, we're moving forward now.
Uh,
Here's what we need to do. How do you define that for them?
yeah, so that the stages of growth is the
Mm,
answer. The actual the evolution of the stages of growth, I mean, it actually began with some work that Chris and I used to do with Gartner all the time about building, um, maturity
okay.
matrices. Like, when you're, as you're becoming more mature in this new technology, here's what it looks like. And we would go into our clients all the time, like, here's the mobile maturity matrix, because we were doing mobile technology. Where are you now, and where do you want to be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Um, I was trying to come up with that for business operating systems as well. And Chris had the I think this is how I remember it anyway. Chris had the genius idea of mapping it against Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because that's really where it starts out. Like, I'm at the survival stage, and then
Yeah.
I'm at the sustainable stage, and then I'm at the scalable stage, and then we started, like, it's a great thought exercise to, where am I, and what does that really look like when I say a company's scalable? What does that really
Mm,
mean? Um, and so I use that as a diagnostic tool when I'm talking to clients. It's like, where are you right now, and where do you want to be?
mm,
And to some extent, that is the great determiner, because I mean, there's some demographic realities that go into this. If you're not a $2 million revenue company, you probably can't afford me full time anyway. Like, that's the full thing. It's going to be hard for you to. Let me put it a different way. It's gonna be hard for you to realize enough value out of
mm,
what I provide, right? The multiples just don't work that quite yet. Um, but but maybe you can get me for a day, and that makes sense
mhm,
this year, and then next year we'll do more.
mm,
Um, and if you don't have 20 people, there's not that much human energy to manage. So, um, that's why I created these other offerings to get people down to the place where, hey, let's talk about if it's just like you and two other people, there's just the four tools you should master right now. Here's the ones that are going to have impact. And how can I deliver those in a way that makes sense against your revenue stack right now, right? If you're a $500,000 company, I talked to one last week, $500,000 company, it's really just two people and a bunch of subcontractors. It's like, okay, let's get you having really productive meetings. Let's clear up what roles and responsibilities look like for everybody and give you a scorecard so you know you're working on the right things.
Mm,
And then maybe start talking about quarterly objectives like rocks. And like, so are you making progress towards what you want to become? Um, and that's it. That's enough. That's plenty. And I can do a reasonably good job of teaching those things in an online class or in a self-directed class,
mm.
right? And because people don't read books as much as they used to. So, I could give you a book about it, but more
Yeah.
than likely, if I give you the book, I give you some worksheets, I give you a video, these things together that, that
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
wider learning process with the ability to call me up or to,
Mm,
to schedule time with me in office hours and ask questions, what thing that gets in the way, that becomes a much more achievable thing. So
mm,
I've really just tagged all my offerings to fit along with where we kinda created those stages of growth so that, by the time you're here, you should probably start having some coaching. By the time you're here, you should have full-time coaching. By the time you're here, at the top, you should find someone, an internal champion that owns this stuff.
mm,
Having someone external to come in and run your annual sounds like a great idea, but someone internally needs to be in charge of the operating system, in charge of
mm.
because you're creating your own operating system. Your company ABC operating system. You're not a 90 OS or EOS or Pinnacle or scaling up anymore. It's time for you to start modifying it and making it
Yeah.
perfect for you, right? Because Amazon has the Amazon operating system.
Mm,
That's exactly how it should be. And you get to that kind of size, you just have to know that's part of the journey. It
yeah.
just don't start out with no operating system or accidental operating system. Start out with something that makes sense, right size, and that's what I can do for people is help them figure out here are the things that have the impact where you are right now, and then
Mm.
and as we move up, you've got options,
Yeah.
including I tell my clients, people that go through this journey with me, if I'm not the right coach, I believe in fit.
Mm,
We have to create a really trusting relationship. If it doesn't feel natural and right, I know right away anyway. I don't want any particular revenue that's gonna be painful. So,
mm.
um, and luckily that's why we built out the firm. We've got 5, coaches right now inside the firm, and a couple of them are EOS folks, and, there's like we have a range of options in there.
Yeah.
Just so we can meet people where they're at and give them the stuff they need. And I just recently got my CEPA, my certified exit planning, credential, and for that purpose, because like
Mm,
we know we have a number of clients who need to be on that journey. We like that model of bringing in all the right people at all the right times, and so that's one more part of the story towards self actualization is like, oh, how do we turn this business into an asset that I can then transfer and either in part or in whole and continue the journey of building generational wealth. So
yeah. And I think that taps into what you could almost call within practice management the idea of a trusted partner network of
yes,
having
yes,
that networking with peers that maybe focus in on something different than you. That's so valuable. I mean, even as you
yeah,
as more of a well-rounded coach where you I mean you business operating system covers a lot, right? But
right.
there's also aspects where having that network of others that can dive in is probably critical for a coach.
It is, I there's nothing more important, I think, in actually building out a meaningful practice where you're actually having a huge impact is knowing the other practitioners in your area that understand what you do and both ways. So, and we run a number of as part of our practice, we run a number of these uh, peer groups that all these people that are there's bankers and insurance people and lawyers and when we get together every month and we share stories, we teach each other about each other's business, and we think about, oh, this is someone I should introduce you to, and we
Mm,
follow a very well structured approach to making introductions of value, because that's what's best for my clients. That's what make my clients really sing and achieve their stuff, and then give them what they need. We see this as part of our flywheel. Like
mm,
if we make these peer connections, introductions of value, then they're going to have so much an easier time referring us to other people. And that's really where the business
Mhm.
comes from, right? It's a,
Yeah.
you know, Chris and I, I've talked about it for a long time as being trust at scale. How do we get to trust at scale?
Mm.
And because it takes a lot of trust to hire me, it does, and and that's an emotional journey. And
Mm.
knowing where you are on that journey and being able to accept it and say, well, that's when you're ready, you're ready. But making it easier by making it so that other people in the network, I just got a great introduction from someone whose expertise is in insurance. He knows some about the struggles of some of the business he sells into. He said, "Hey, you really got to meet Jim. Jim can solve these kinds of problems. He's got these. Here's a story about someone he really helped out. You should at least talk to him so you understand what that looks like, right? So
Mm.
that's expanding the context of someone's understanding of like these are the kinds of things that can help you along the journey, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's I've woven all around your question, but I think having a trusted, and actually we call it a trusted partner network
Mm.
in our practice. But we also one of the things we like about SEPA is the same model. They've got
Yes.
of having this network of people, and having everyone be able to speak the same language and know how
Yes.
they play well together has been
Yes.
really, really super fun because I think it's in other systems, not everyone plays well together. They talk about it, but they don't
Right.
necessarily play well together. But I've been able to, when I make a phone call into someone, say, "Hey, you're a SEPA, I'm a SEPA. Let's talk about my clients." And
Yes.
that, "Oh my God, that sounds great. I'm glad to know you because I've got
Mm.
clients that could use exactly someone like you." And that's and everyone's better. Everyone's better for it. I don't have to spend as much time taking everyone through the trust journey because
Right.
their trusted partner says, "This is the guy I think you should talk to. Who's really going to help you out." Which just makes all the difference. That's
Mm.
and they and we everyone in that network knows I'm not going to sell anybody anything. I'm going to make myself available. I'm going to educate them. If it seems to fit, then I'm here for them if they say yes, if they want help. But if they don't want help, I know 4 other people that maybe can. And
Yeah.
that's so much better a model for the type of work we do
Mhm.
than I don't know, just sending out books.
Right. No, that makes
Um,
total sense. And then you referenced the emotional journey a lot, and I'd
yeah.
love to dive into that, but really from the context of the client management process.
Mhm.
Once you have, you've earned that trust to they've hired you as a coach. How
Mm.
do what steps do you take to manage that experience to give them
Yeah.
to make sure it's not a chaotic emotional journey? I don't know how else to describe that.
No, it's right, and I gotta say that I don't always get it right, but, so it's an important thing, it's an area of growth for me for sure, but I know I've always known that Um, for clients that hire me, sometimes I don't talk to them for a full quarter, right? I met them at the quarterly. I'll reach in and try to talk to the owner or whoever the leader is, mid quarter, and hey, how we doing? And they're all my clients are 90, so I get to keep track.
Mhm.
I watch what goes on at their meetings. So something goes haywire and they've rated the meeting a 7. I'm like calling them up and saying what's going on.
Yeah.
Uh, but short of all that, that's an okay cadence if we have a high degree of trust already. But when people are starting out, I try to overserve them because part of what I'm doing is getting them to the point where they have um, the momentum in finding the value in the system. Because if I don't do that, and if I don't spend time with them building trust, so they know that I'm not just selling days, that I'm actually here to help them, but in any way they can. If I can't get them to call me or invite me to one of their weekly meetings and walk them through stuff, and if they're not willing to take that coaching, then they're not going to be a long term client.
Mhm.
They're just not, and they're not, and the system's going to fail them because if you know the the system, the ritual, the concepts, tools, disciplines, and the software, they still don't make good decisions for you. You have to make good
Right.
decisions. So getting the people so they trust me and trust the system,
Mm.
that is on me. Especially that first year, I know if I don't touch them sufficiently, then they're not going to actually grow the way I need them to. And or if they shun that outreach, um, then they probably don't want it enough, and they're going to go away. And I've got plenty of examples of that. And one of the things I've learned because I learned it a little bit the hard way I've got leaders on teams that say, "Hey, my door's open. I'm here if you got any questions." And what I teach them is like, "Listen, you're uh you're a hippo. Highest paid person's opinion. That's what you've got. So when you say to someone, 'Hey, my door's open. I'd like to if you've got a question, I'd like to hear it.' That's not how it works.
Mm,
If you're not willing to go first with questions, you're not going to get that build the trust. You're not going to, that it's really okay. You have to be in charge of creating that linkage with people. One of my favorite things that Mark Abbott ever wrote about was the mathematics of trust, and like that notion of we got to get to connection. And if you're not building connection, with time on task, frequency, and depth of conversation, if you don't do that, then we don't have trust. We aren't going to turn to somebody that we don't trust to help solve a problem. Because that's what gets in the way so often of people working with me. It's like, oh, it's really messy here. I don't know if I want you over. It's like, dude, I'm the cleaning lady. I'm here to clean up. Do not worry about that. That is my job. It's what I love to do. It, I promise with together we can go clean this up faster than you do it by yourself. And so that is the emotional journey is, do I trust people, to help me out here? Do they really have my best interest at heart? Will they just take my money and not help me out? Do they actually have a way that's meaningful for me, that'll
mm,
apply to me? Does it If I let them in, will they realize that I'm a fraud? I don't really know how to do this. It's like, dude, you got to this point. And when I tell them, you got to this point, you're not a fraud,
right.
right? If you're the point you're talking to me, you've done pretty good. So don't worry about it. And different people, emotional journeys are all different for everybody. But being able to recognize where they are and then be able to ask them the questions they need in that moment, that is my job,
Mm,
right? What's the thing that I can ask you right now that's going to give you clarity uh, about what you should do next? I can't tell you what to do. That wouldn't
mm,
be helpful. But if I can keep asking you questions and engage you that way, it's like, hey, kind of seems like this, and if you don't solve that, this is what's going to happen.
mm,
um, or, here's a thing I'm kind of recognizing in your team. I call it, do you want me to give you the scouting report on your team? But I don't just say mean things. I say like, this is what I'm kind of seeing, assuming positive intent or recognizing when there isn't positive intent. And here's some steps that you can take to get there. Because, I'm not throwing here to throw grenades in anybody's business. It's just really, you need a path through it. And sometimes your emotional journey is what keeps you from seeing it or acting on it. And so
yeah.
if I can see it because I'm reading the label on the outside of your jar and then be able to come back with some concrete steps for you to take, that's what I need to do. Right.
Mm,
So I need to be your Sherpa through this emotional journey. And for that to happen, I need to get in deep. I need to be willing to go first. I need to ask questions and I need to track where you are.
mm,
That's the hardest part about growing your practice is having that kind of mindfulness and intentionality on 20 companies is kind of hard. So you got to hope that some of them get into, I don't want to say you know them well enough, you don't have to spend as much time maintaining them, right?
mm,
But I know for me that because I take my client success so personally, uh, and that's what I enjoy. That's what it feeds me. Um, that I can only take on so many clients at a time. Like
mm.
I can only add clients at a certain rate. I couldn't add 10 new clients next month. That would kill me. That would,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there comes. I mean, it really summed up. I think this would be a fascinating deep dive, like mini series within this greater,
Yeah.
but like the importance of emotional intelligence as a
Yes.
coach. I think that's a huge part of it that is, I mean, critical for identifying things, but also
Yep.
understanding where they're at in the emotional journey. You have to have a some form of awareness to understand this is where they're at and this is how I'm going to respond based on that.
Man, you can't be a great leader unless you develop emotional intelligence. You just can't. You're gonna miss it. Yeah, I've been slowly going through Brené Brown's, Atlas of the Heart because
Uh,
um, but it is everything that Jim Collins is about business practice. Brené Brown has developed around the emotional reality of the humans. As long as you're hiring humans, uh, and maybe we won't. We'll just hire AIs, but that'll be a different set of problems. But
yeah.
if you're hiring humans, they all come with some emotional baggage. They're all where they're at, and if you want them to start working together and producing together, you have to have a plan and a program for developing team health, for letting them go on their emotional journey to becomes more self-aware and be able to show up and build trust. And so you know part of Atlas of the Heart is just like, here's all the words that we have for feelings that people don't use all the time, but have different meanings, and we should know that, right?
Mhm.
There's a conversation I take my clients through about whenever time you're expressing something. I said you're always expressing either a fact, a feeling, a preference, or an opinion, and you should be clear about which one it is, right?
Yes.
Facts are attributable or measurable. Feelings are neither of those things. But they're still valid because they will affect your decision framework.
Yeah.
Preferences are feelings that acknowledge that there are other decisions that could be made, right? And opinions are the culmination of all those things. If you want an engineering opinion, you want a legal opinion, you want a medical opinion, it says based on these facts and understanding that my preference is always to do no harm or whatever.
Mhm.
Here's what I suggest we do, right? And so now I can really understand that's an opinion.
Yeah.
Me, when biggest problem is people are expressing feelings all the time and calling them opinions. They're not,
Mm.
right? They're like, well, my opinion is this. It's like based on what? I don't have to base it on anything. It's my opinion. It's like, oh, okay. Let me be
Right.
really clear here. That sounds like a feeling,
Yeah.
which which you're allowed to have, by the way, but doesn't really help the conversation if you start calling it an opinion.
Hmm.
Acknowledge it's a feeling and knowing that you know, okay, now we know how to. That's how the world looks like in your head. Now let me unpack how the world looks in my head.
Yes. And Jim, just such a wealth of knowledge and experiences and lots of lessons
That's very
learned
kind.
over the years. But man, I appreciate you sharing so much. Just so many
Of
good
course.
things. There were a couple things that you referenced as far as books and some articles and some things.
Yeah,
We will link out to that in the show notes for people that want to dive into
perfect.
that. I appreciate you sharing those things. Um, in closing, I always like to ask the guests a couple
Mhm.
questions, but if you had to go back and talk to rookie Jim, just
Yeah, yeah,
starting out in business coaching, but let's say you have all the experiences and knowledge that you have now and all the lessons learned and all the books that you've read over the years, what
yeah.
advice would you give yourself just starting out?
Um, the real unlock for me, well, there's 2 parts to it. One, it's the stages of growth. Like, when you're
Mhm.
starting out, you're in survival stage, just acknowledge it. Even if you've got plenty of money to hang out for a while, you're not actually able to do the work until you have
Yeah.
people say yes to you, right?
Mhm.
So you should make the kind of decisions you make in survival stage. You should, um, lean back, I think the advice that other systems give, to their new coaches isn't necessarily valid in this regard. You should lean back into the communities of expertise that you already understand and know that part of what you're selling them and say, hey, I'd love to give you some of my expertise, but I'm going to sell it to you in this framework of this operating system that I'm selling you. And that's because that's how you're going to be able to take it on and do most with it. Um, and you should be, and you've got to spend more time in the session room to actually have the confidence, the swagger you need to go to the next stage. So find as many nonprofits as you need to be busy all the time
Mhm.
coaching. And it's really about always be coaching. That gosh, I uh this notion that there's a separate mode to get into when you're doing business development, I think is just false and not very doesn't serve people very well. Whereas if you go out and every day create value for people, and if you find ways of actually helping people, like, and that's like a difference, like, oh, I'm gonna post on LinkedIn. Okay, but if you just post stuff that isn't valuable to me, I might say, "High five, man." But if you're actually out there every day helping people with what you're posting, like, "Hey, man, this is really valuable. Here's how I think you should use it. It's for these kinds of people." Really add the meta stuff around it so people know how to use it.
Yeah.
That actually shows great um, capabilities as a coach, and start thinking that way and start showing up that way. Like, hey,
Mhm.
I'm here to coach some people today. I'm going to hand out some business cards, but I'm going to start by help creating some value, you know, and just network. But when you're networking, you're not just trying to find new clients. You're actually there to, who can I help today? I'm going to
Yes.
help somebody. Um, because I think that's for me. That's really been the big shift. Is I don't do any sales anymore. I don't do any you know marketing. I think about it as coaching at scale.
Mm.
And how can I just have more impact on more people all the time? And the clients find me. the client's finding.
Yeah. I really appreciate you talking about the 5 stages from a coaching practice standpoint because that's so accurate. I mean, you
Yeah.
go through those as you're building your coaching practice. So we're actually building an assessment, and by the time this
Yeah.
episode, launches, it should be live. So I will link out to that because I think it's
Perfect.
fascinating for people to go through, especially business coaches or consultants, to identify where they're at because there are specific things and action steps that you can take when you're in specific stages to
Yeah.
move to that next one. So that's really what stemmed this whole entire series where we're going through and
Perfect.
talking about coaches that have done it so we can help other coaches move through those stages and get to a point where they're not just in survival mode all the time.
Yeah, and understand that what works at level 3 is not gonna work at level 1.
Right.
Right? So, like,
Exactly.
you have to have a di you have you and you have to as you're moving up, you have to become a different kind of leader, right?
Mm.
And a different time you have to show up differently, and it isn't just one thing. It is a continuum, and, you should be willing to evolve as much as you want your clients to evolve.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
tell me a lesson that you're in the middle of learning right now. I know that's a
mm,
more deeper question, but I
oh,
love
no, it's
diving into that because coaches have this hunger for knowledge, and I know you do, so I know you're in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I've been really excited about the Exit Planning Institute and their program. It aligns so well with what I know of business operating systems. One, but two, it really addresses one of the things that's been missing for me as I was in my coaching is having a way of one helping people realize that they should be creating enterprise value. I mean, I know that was one of the things that started working on 90 OS. That was one of the 9 things you had to be good at, is like understanding your enterprise value. And for so many entrepreneurs, they don't understand it. Like if they're
Right.
making money, they're good, but it's like, but it isn't a transferable asset at this point. And
Mm,
something bad happens, you're in trouble. But in fact, I have a client right now that's going to buy one of their competitors because the founder of their competitor died unexpectedly,
mm,
and it's a mess.
mm,
And I mean, there's the businesses, he was at the center of everything that happened. He made all the decisions. And so they are a complete disaster. Don't do that to yourself. Know that you have to be building an asset, which means building people and building, managing uh, the business as a transferable asset, having processes, teaching people, having, understanding your customers better. Anyway,
mm.
that's one. I love that work, and, the thing is, what's amazing is I have all these experts from all these different fields happy to help me with that journey.
Yeah.
The other one is so it's like this is the truth of my coaching practice, I find, like, so there's that pure business side of stuff. I've gotta figure that out. Then the other side is, like, all the people stuff. So, and my wife does some work in this area, but it's, the most recent thing was realizing that working through this stuff that Brene Brown's been puts out. I love all her books, and I think it's an important part. Figuring out how to apply that back into my clients. Matter of fact, I just had one where there's some turnover, and we took some of the stuff from Brene Brown's trust and Mark Abbott's trust scoring into that. We worked it in session. Like, what are the, how are we creating trust? How are we meaningfully and intentionally building trust between us when we think about these frameworks for trust? Um, and it one of the hardest parts, I gotta tell you, man, it's devastating, is that, we've just, as a species, learned about trauma, and what creates trauma, and how we're probably all traumatized to a little bit, and how trauma is almost untouchable by talk therapy.
Hmm.
It's a physical truth that develops in people. So, we don't acknowledge trauma very often because small trauma. Oh, what's trauma? It's like what's your trauma?
Mm,
What's your big thing? You didn't go to war. What? But the reality is, we all go through traumatic experiences, and depending on whether or not we get the opportunity to work those things out, and that workout is physical. You can't touch your trauma unless you're willing to do the physical work that comes along with it.
mm,
And so, it's like anything where once you start studying something, it's like when you buy a white car or something. Everyone has a white car, right? So now I see it all around me, and it's been this huge unlock for a lot of my teams. Like, why is that team struggling? Oh,
mm,
now I recognize the signs of this kind of trauma or this kind of, this nuanced feeling in there. And so I can do a better job of coaching them through it. So those are the two things I'm working on: exit planning and all the disciplines there, and dealing with trauma inside of business.
Well, thanks so much, Jim, for
Absolutely.
sharing your wisdom. Just like I said, a wealth of knowledge and experience. But let's say someone, maybe another coach or even a client, is interested in getting in touch with you. Where would they go? What's the best place to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. That's how it's an easy one. I'm there every day. But certainly impactarchitects.io. You go find a link for my help first time on our site. Like I'm really I enjoy. You come to me and you ask for help. I'm going to give you help. Regardless of what the nature of it is. And if a coach wants to call me, man, I'm always up for that conversation. That's my favorite kind of people. So
Yes, likewise. Well, cool. Well, again, thank you so much.
of
If you
course,
are a coach, a consultant, a fractional executive, and you want to learn more about building a coaching practice, you've stuck it out, listen to Jim, you know everything you need to know, you listen to this episode. No, but if you're interested in learning more, maybe about some of the stages or some of the things that Jim talked about, we are all about helping coaches build and scale their practices. That's why we're doing this series. That's why we've developed these stages, these core competencies. We're serious about helping coaches. So if you would like to get on a call and talk with me about that, or go to a resource, we have a ton of resources. Like I said, we'll link out to some of those. But if you want to reach out to me, just reach out via email. I am more than happy to pop on a call and talk with you to help you grow your practice and take it to the next level. So thanks again, Jim, for popping on and sharing your wisdom. Hopefully
Cam,
everyone
always
has
good
a
to
good
chat,
rest of
man.
your day. Bye.
Thanks, Cam. Bye now.
That's it for today's episode of the Ambitious Coach Lab. My hope is that something here helps you sharpen your craft and keep building a coaching practice you're proud of. Before we wrap, a quick thank you to our sponsor, 90. If you're coaching leadership teams, having your clients run their entire world in 90 truly elevates your work. Vision, rocks, scorecards, issues, it all lives in one centralized place. The clarity keeps your clients aligned between sessions and makes every conversation you have with them more focused and more impactful. I've used 90 with over 500 leadership teams, and I can tell you it makes great companies better and great coaches even more effective. Feel free to use promo code AC20 for 20% off. Again, that's AC20 for 20% off. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm Cam, cheering you on as you grow your ambitious coaching practice. We'll see you next time.